Welcome to conversation today. Today we're going to talk to Geiza Viana, who is a good friend of mine and also a biologist from Brazil. So I actually met Geiza a number of years ago when she was working for an NGO called Projeto Tamar. She's a biologist. She's been working in the area of environmental science for about 10 years now, I think. And she's worked in a variety of different types of positions and jobs. And today she's going to be talking about some of the work she's doing currently. Before we actually get started with our conversation, though, I thought it might be helpful if I start the conversation by just providing a little bit of background for those of you that are not familiar with Brazil and sort of the current situation with regards to oil and gas exploration, which is sort of the area in which Geiza is currently working in. So Brazil is actually one of the top 15 oil producers in the world. And one of the areas that is undergoing a lot of oil and gas exploration right now in Brazil is a place called the Campos Basin. And the Campos Basin is located in the Atlantic Ocean. It's located approximately 75 miles off the coast of Rio de Janeiro. And it's a huge, huge area. So it's maybe about 44,000 square miles. So this is a huge area. And the history of oil and gas exploration in Campos Basin started, I think, in about the early 1970s. And it's really, really going gangbusters right now. One of the largest companies that's actually doing a lot of that gas exploration is a Brazilian-owned company known as Petrobras. So if those of you that haven't heard of that, Petrobras is a very large player in oil and gas exploration. So in about the 1990s, there was a resolution 237, that was created. And what this resolution did was it actually provided some kind of standardization for the issuing of environmental licenses for activities and enterprises that actually were going to use any sort of environmental resources. And the license was important because these particular activities and enterprises also stood the potential for causing a lot of environmental degradation or damage. So that was an important resolution. Now, shortly after that resolution was passed, the Brazilian Institute of the Environment and Renewable Natural Resources, the short form of that is called IBAMA, and that's IBAMA. They issued a requirement that all oil and gas exploration companies support and help fund a sort of an education and scientific sector that was going to really be assessing the health, the safety, and environmental aspects of sort of oil and gas exploration. And this particular sector, I think the Brazilian short form or acronym is the SMS sector, has a lot of different multidisciplinary teams or interdisciplinary teams. And Geiza is actually a biologist on one of these multidisciplinary teams. So with that, I just wanted to have Geiza start talking a little bit about herself, and maybe also just to describe what she does in general as a biologist as part of this multidisciplinary team.
Okay. So I would like to say that it's a pleasure to talk with you in this night. And I am Geiza. I am a biologist, and I work in Petrobras. It's a owned company, Brazilian owned company. And I work in the team, in Portuguese said SMS. It's in English is HATE SA. It's a team about health, safety, and environment. I worked in SMS Science 2040. Sorry, 24. 5 years I worked in this sector. The campus base is a large campus for exploration the oil and gas in Brazil. It's more biggest campus field about oil and gas exploration. And I worked in campus base in science. I have 5 years. Which is main oil and gas exploration in Brazil, a state one national company, like I say. And I follow and carry the projects for mitigation and compensation for impacts here in Brazil and the industry of petroleum. This mitigation and compensation it's a condition for license. In Brazil, have a CONAMA, CONAMA, have articles for laws about the license. This law created 20 years before have many questions about the license. The IBAMA created the technical note about license too. This program said if you have a license, you need to make any questions about mitigation and compensation. Example, I worked now in PCP, it's a pollution control project, PCAP, Fishing Activity Compensation Plan, PAA is an environmental education program, PCS is a social communication program, and PA8 it's an environmental education program for workers. If you don't have this program, you don't have license. And sometimes this program is for communities or the workers in the rig, and the base, in the off-scene. Every people with working in oil and gas need this program. No, it is only for Petrobras. All companies you have a federal license make these projects. Okay. Based in many laws in Brazil, a federal constitution said about these projects, and the national policy environment tell about these projects. The law about crimes tell about these projects, and it's the Petrobras make these projects, and international companies make these projects. No, it's only here in Brazil. It's for all companies who work in Brazil need the federal license and need to make this project.
Thanks very much. So all of these different programs that you're talking about, these sort of compensation and mitigation programs, those are all regulated by the federal government? IBAMA?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
IBAMA, CONAMA, and CISNAMA have three organs here.
Okay.
These are three government federal organs. After these organs, you need the state of license. Is INEA, example. INEA is a government in Rio de Janeiro only. But for oil and gas, you need the federal license. Example, here in campus have a port for ships. If you need construction for ports, you don't need the federal license, only the state of license.
So that I can make sure that I'm understanding exactly what you're saying, I'm just going to recap. And so if I make a mistake and I haven't understood something, just correct me. So part of what PCAP does, this program, is that it does compensate local fishermen. We're talking about fishermen, not these big industrial companies. We're talking about local traditional fishermen that are really subsistence fishermen.
So this PCAP, it's only for artisanal fishermen. Right. Don't make a PCAP for the industrial fishermen.
Right. Okay. And so what some of these oil and gas companies now have to do, because what they're doing by building these rigs out in the Campos Basin, for example, is they have a zone of protection around these rigs where fishermen no longer can fish. And so they lose territory, and consequently they lose a significant portion of their catch. And so to compensate for that, Petrobras and some of these other big oil companies have to pay out a certain amount of money to support them. So things like purchasing buildings and helping them with medical costs, educational costs. Do they help them with well, like processing fish or storing fish? Do they help them with their own industry, or this is just all medical and education?
Yes, it's many projects for pickup. This is one example, but have you one project here is a project for environmental education, but it's an example for environmental education, critical education in Brazil. It's a line and they vamos use because you need preserve the nature, but the humans is our object for nature. The humans need the protection too.
Right.
The environmental education, critical environmental education, said you need make an organization for social peoples. These are social organizations for these humans, these peoples, work together the company and work together the government about the management for the management for environment.
I think what Geiza is actually talking about is a project called Pescarce, which is another one of these sort of PCAP type programs that is really trying to educate, provide some kind of economic support for artisanal fishermen in the area that are being affected by all of this oil and gas exploration.
Thanks for watching. For more information, visit our website at www.futurefrogmen.org.